Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson, and welcome to Construction Project Management Principles and Tips. Today we're going to be talking about the PDCA cycle, Plan, Do, Check, Act. How can we make improvements in construction? What kind of frameworks can we use? What kind of tools can we use that will help us develop processes that lead us to success each and every time, or at least improvements to where we currently are? And so we'll be looking at what's also referred to as the Deming cycle today, which is a well-established, well-proven methodology for doing exactly that. So PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, is also referred to as PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Adjust. I probably would have used the PDSA because I actually think it does a better job of describing it, but I think it's a little bit lesser well known. PDSA was also developed by Edwards Deming. He didn't like, after a period of time, PDCA. He thought that PDSA better describes it. But for today, we'll just refer to it as PDCA. Plan, Do, Check, Act. It's a cycle that we use in construction or in manufacturing or in anything for that matter to continuously improve from where we are, to look at what we're doing in a very analytical way, to make predictions around what we're trying to do, and then to compare what actually happens to what we predicted. And then look at it, well, what did we learn from it? So it's got a whole bunch of different components in the cycles. So the plan part is, the P of PDCA, is we want to really look at what is it we're trying to intend to do. Now, if you're on a construction project, there's a lot of things. And so the first thing I would preface is you want to do this with something that's going to give you a high return on investment. So you're not looking to spend $1 to save 80 cents. You're looking where you could spend $1 to save $4 perhaps. Or you're looking at something that bugs you. Or you're looking at something that you think might be unsafe. Something that you see high value in doing. And in previous sessions, I've talked about the Pareto principle, and I'm sure I'll bring it up again, but the 80-20 rule. So in this case, I would apply it in such a way you're looking at the 20% of elements that would give you a 4 times return on that, like the 80% return on that investment. That would be the type of high value things that you should focus your time and efforts on. So I'll give you an example. You're planning something. What is it we intend to do? And I had this recently with one of my clients and students taking my lean construction training. And he gave a great example. He really gave a great example. He said, well, we've got blocking to put in. And I've noticed that the existing condition, it just seems so wasteful. And it's like let's say it was a condominium building. I don't think his was a condominium, but I think it's easier to visualize. Say it's a 30-story condominium building that you're building, and there's blocking like for towel bars, for a variety of apparatus that you have to fasten to the wall. And you're going to go back and you're going to back frame all of this blocking. And so the one group that he noticed, which was experienced people, they kind of set themselves up in one of the units, and they set up a chop saw and a bench, and they had a few pieces of equipment, he noted. And then they were cutting pieces there, and they were walking back and forth, putting the pieces in. And he thought it was very wasteful. So that identified something that bugged him, number one. Number two, something that he thought could be dramatically improved upon. So that was the other thing. And he had another building that he'd worked on previously, and it was a different carpentry crew. And he saw them working, and they were working much more efficiently. So he had some ideas of how it could improve to begin with. And we'll jump back to that. But that would be an excellent example of what do we want to improve upon. We want to improve upon the time that it takes to do the blocking system. And so basically, PDCA is a great program for that. So what is our current situation, our status? All right, well, he also observed that it took about 1 hour to do one unit, the blocking, complete blocking in a unit, bathrooms, anywhere else, maybe in the kitchen, some areas where there needed blocking for the cabinetry, etc. And so that was observed, 1 hour. All right, so what is our target? What is our goal? And he thought a suitable goal would be, or let's say, for example, he would be looking at a suitable goal of, say, half an hour, right? Maybe he's looking for that. Maybe he's looking for 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. All right, so you pick a goal, a target, and how do we intend to close that gap? So what are some of the things that we think we're going to do to close that gap? And so one of the things he was thinking about with that example is, well, why are you walking back and forth? Let's put it on a cart. Let's put everything on a cart, right? And so he looked at that and putting on wheels. And so you could cut the 2x4s in half, put them in this cart, and the cart could also act as a bench to cut them on. So that was one of the solutions. Now, he did get some pushback. So we do get pushback with things because the one crew was like, this is how we've always done it. This is the best way. We know. So PDCA can be useful. You know, you have multiple paths, and it's all right. Well, this is your path. So let's see how your path is, and let's see this other path. And so you could have more than one path as my example, right? You might not be so lucky that you've got this existing path cut out. You might come up with two different paths because you haven't done it before. So you do that, and you set yourself up for it. Then you execute it, and they executed it. So test out the plan. How is it working, right? And be observant. So this is also tying to lean, is like Gemba, going to observe. We call it in North America a lot of times observation walks, but it's really using the Japanese term going to Gemba. Be where it's happening. Observe what's going on, right? And, you know, as we said, there might be more than one plan. Execute them. So you execute the one plan and it takes 60 minutes. You execute the other plan and maybe it takes 20 minutes. Pretty good, right? So we're executing in normal fashion. Now, the other thing is we're executing it in normal fashion. In other words, it's not about running around. Lean is about respect for people. Doing this kind of work in construction, you don't want people running around. You don't want to have safety concerns. You want to come up with a better system that is more effortless in practice. Also, you're going to turn people off if you're trying to make it harder for them. The idea is to actually make it easier. It's this aspect of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It's going to be easier if you're not walking back and forth and trying to remember things, etc. So it's going to be much easier and less stressful. So that's a positive thing. So you want to remember that respect for people, especially, you know, in construction and manufacturing. There could be a lot of hazards around from that perspective. And then we check. How did it work? So in the planning, we determined, you know, what was our goal? What were we trying to achieve? We're, 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. What were we trying to do? What quality expectation do we have in that work as well? Because we want to have clear goals identified so we can measure and compare against it. So that's coming into the checking. How did it work? We're completing that analysis and comparing to predictions. What did we learn, right? What did we learn? What can we take forward? Have you improved enough to reach your target? So, in the first example, we learned the first example was like wasteful like crazy. We really established that. It wasn't hypothesized. It wasn't somebody spouting something off. We did it, we checked it, and we see it. So that's now going a long way to selling the group of carpenters that thought, well, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we should do it. And this is the cheapest way, the best way. No, you can see another way for me. In the second way, okay, so let's say that the second time that it was done in 20 minutes. Well, that was great, but there was some observations that was made, some learning that was made. So they had originally like a cord. They had to run the cord to the plugs. The plugs weren't all hooked up. They only had certain places that they were hooked up at that time. So you need a long extension cord. And then basically that was some of the learning that took place that would seem to be kind of wasteful, right? So with the acting aspect, it's like confirm ongoing measurements for success. So what are we going to measure? Was it right to measure the time? Was it right, the quality expectation? Are we studying? Have we got the right standards for that? What are we going to measure so we can see going forward how we do? If the targets are not met, complete a second cycle. So this might take a number of cycles. It might take 4, 5, 6 cycles. There's an excellent actual simulation that ASKM Associates have that actually has you build out this sort of little, graphical person, and you get people to work in it in a virtual environment and build them out and time it. And they do it once, and it takes like 2.5 minutes. They do it the second time, it takes like 2 minutes. And they do this whole cycle. And by the fifth time that they do it, very often they're getting into around 30 seconds. So you've taken something that was 2.5 minutes long and you've got it down to 30 seconds. And people are less stressed and they're not working as hard on that last section. And that's what PDCA is getting you to do. It's getting you to collaborate, to engage in the group and come up with better ways. And it's incremental in improvement, which is really, really good. So you determine, if the target's not met, complete a second cycle and so on. If you feel that there's a lot more value in doing an extra cycle, then you continue onward, right? And it was funny because when I had the group of students, actually professionals, work on that ASKM Associates simulation that I was talking about, one of the groups kind of got it down to, I'd say 45 seconds. And they said, that's it. You can't get it any faster without it compromising quality, safety, if it was a real site, that sort of thing. And I said, okay, well, but try that extra cycle, see if 45 is your zone and that sort of thing. And they had a couple of little things that they said, but they did the extra cycle and they actually got it down to pretty much 30 seconds again. So they were surprised themselves because they had thought they had actually met their limit, but they tweaked a few things, and just those few minor tweaks still got them almost a 50% return from where they were, which is fantastic, right? But do expect diminishing returns. So you do go very often from like 2.5 minutes to 1.5 minutes. Like that's a big shortening of time. And then maybe the next one's 30 seconds. And then maybe the next one's 15 seconds. And the next one's maybe 10 seconds in my example that I'm giving it to you. It could be minutes, right? So you got to determine, all right, at what point are we spinning wheels here? It's not worth the extra time and effort to try to go even further with this because we've got other items on our projects that are more low-hanging fruit that we could go after to improve upon those times, right? So you can't do it for everything, but if you can imagine, so going back to my example with that professional that had the blocking, in that particular example, he said, okay, they took it from 20 minutes and then they did it again. And now it's down, they eventually got it down to 12 minutes, going with cordless Sawzall, right? And I think that because they had metal studs, because it was condo building, cordless drills. Everything went cordless, forget the cords. No searching for plugs, no walking back and forth with that. And a few other tweaks that they made along the way. So I think it took them probably 4 times to do it. They got it down to 12 minutes. So from 60 minutes to 12 minutes, right? 30-story condo, you could say, let's make it an even number. Let's say that there was 500 units in this condo, right? So 500 units. So that would be 500 hours if each one was an hour. And instead, you got it down to 12 minutes, right? So do the math on that, right? So you're taking it down to, I think that works out to about 100 hours. So you're going from 500 hours to 100 hours. There you've got a 4x return on that investment, right? Or is that 5x return on that investment? That's big. That's big. So we got from 500 to 100, 400 hours. 400 hours. If you take the burdened rate of labor, if you add over the overhead costs onto that, 400 hours, say $100, right? That would be $40,000. One thing on that building. I think that's probably worth it. I think, if that takes you a half a day to play around with, I think that's probably worth it. What do you think? So those are some of the examples that you can think about. And really what you're doing is you're going step by step, right? And you want to set the standard. Like what does this mean now? How are we going to do this going forward? We've got sort of a standard. We're going to set up a bench that looks like this. It's this size. It's these dimensions. It's got these wheels on it. It's got a platform at the right height that we can cut off of. It's got areas that we can store our lumber and move it around very easily through doorways and everything else. And you're setting a standard for that, and going forward that will bring improvements. Now you can only imagine on your projects, lots of opportunities. Does anybody have any other examples that you want to share? Please put it in the comments. It makes things really good as we build our community. And please click subscribe as we grow this community together, and click the notifications icon. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I'm Tom Stephenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.